Hey everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Let's Talk Social. Today was going to be a little bit different. I don't have a plethora of show notes for you. I'm actually going to be just speaking freely about a topic I'm actually kind of passionate about, and really more so just extremely curious about what the future holds in relation to this topic, and it is the growth of YouTube and its future competition with TikTok. I have a big inkling in my head that TikTok and YouTube are really going to be kind of the two that are left once the dust settles after the storm. Really, what I mean by that is, fast forward 5 years from now, what's going to be kind of the more domineering forces in the social media platforms. And I think it's going to be TikTok and YouTube. And I honestly think YouTube doesn't even really get the credit that it deserves, as I don't really think a lot of people consider it a social media platform. They really consider it more of a video viewing platform, almost like a streaming platform, as if it were Hulu or Netflix and other things. Now, the reason for this is because not a lot of people will make their own YouTube videos because there's kind of like a barrier to entry in terms of like actually creating the content, whereas TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, they encourage and almost give you a layup with content creation. They encourage less formal content publishing and creation. That was like one of Instagram's bigger things. If you don't know, the guy who started Instagram was in bed with his girlfriend one night while he was still kind of coming up with the idea for the platform. And she was like, yeah, but I would never post to it. And he was like, well, why not? And she was like, well, everyone's stuff on there just looks so pretty. Like, I don't think I could ever make mine look that good. And so that was how he came up with the idea for filters on photos, pre-built filters. And that was ultimately what got Instagram up and off the ground as a domineering platform. Now, I say filters today, and it's laughable, right? Like every single platform has pre-built in filters. Snapchat, YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, like most everything already has like a pre-built in filter. And the reason for that is because it lowers the barrier of entry for the consumer. Their perceived likelihood of achieving the outcome and the goal of the post, which is getting engagement, looking smart or funny or pretty or whatever it is they're looking to get affirmation in, the barrier of entry is much lower with those platforms because you can apply filters and manicure the content to look a little bit better. So let's reel this back to my idea with YouTube for a second. The reason I think YouTube doesn't feel like a social media platform is because the barrier of entry is high. So they have yet to figure out how can we make it easy for people to post so that they actually want to put things out there. They start to give themselves a little bit more, I guess, which this is a whole podcast for something else, but there's like this theory I'm developing that really is about like how much value somebody's internal, like their post itself has. So like the value behind you leaving a comment, like people attribute value in their own heads to like their attention, I guess. So, sorry, it's hard to stay on topic with these like very macro looks at everything. But when you think people are going to react in a more positive manner toward whatever the goal is, then you're more likely to post. YouTube has an issue right now because people feel like if they put a YouTube video out, it's not going to get 100,000 views because they don't have a following, XYZ. TikTok has kind of eliminated a lot of that because, one, it's really easy to go viral on the platform. Two, it's easy to create content because of the ability to share sounds, filters, and just like reusing themed content. YouTube, you can't really do a lot of that for. There's not like the same type of video 800 times by a bunch of different creators that is like reusing how you would in TikTok, like a sound or a filter, for instance. So I think that's one of the bigger problems that YouTube is facing right now, is trying to get more people to actually post on the platform and not just consume content as a fly on the wall. And so they had recently started YouTube Shorts. I'm sure you guys have seen that on the platform. If you've been there, I was chatting with a fellow yesterday about it, and I made the point. I was like, dude, you can't even go in the app now on YouTube without Shorts being the very first thing that you see. And the reason for that is because they're trying to get in competition with TikTok and Instagram. It's the same thing Instagram is doing, right? Like if you go on Instagram right now, I bet you probably upwards of 80% of the stuff that you scroll past and see will be a video content, if not specifically a reel. And the reason for that is, again, because they're trying to compete with user retention times against TikTok. TikTok came in and has been changing all the other platforms because of its success. So when we're looking at TikTok and YouTube, the reason I think that they'll be the main two that are left is because of user retention time, the thing that I was just talking about with how they keep and capture people, right? For Facebook, which I didn't look any of the stuff up. Like I said, this is all off the cuff. But if you looked it up, I'm sure it would affirm it. Facebook, the average time someone spends scrolling on there is probably like 30 to 40 minutes, maybe less, 20. Instagram, I think on average is upwards of 40 to 60. And then you have TikTok, which is the freak out of the group, is sitting at 110 minutes, almost 2 whole hours people are spending on that platform. And it's because the content is addictive as heck. But what's cool is YouTube kind of has a similar thing going for it, where the average watch time on YouTube on a daily basis is typically much higher. And it's because the content is more long form, not necessarily more addicting, but more long form. And so what you're seeing right now with TikTok, these last probably like 12 months or so, is they're upping the length of they're upping the possible posting length of videos. So it used to be, I want to say it was like a minute when they first started, and then it went to 5 minutes, and then just recently, and I'm not sure if they taken it out of beta yet, but they were beta testing 10 minutes, and they're really kind of following in the footstep of their bigger brother, I guess you could say, the Chinese counterpart to the app. So if you don't know, there's kind of like a very pre-established version of TikTok already full-fledged and going up in China right now, private to China. They have whole separate internets from us and separate social media, the whole deal. And so with that, they already have, that social media is already, say, a few years ahead of TikTok. They own both, but they can look at what's happening on this app and then trickle down the successes to TikTok. So something we've seen inside of the Chinese app, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, but something we've seen inside of the Chinese version of TikTok is they have increased the posting time up to, I think, 24 hours, and you can go live, I think, for up to a week now. So you can literally live stream for up to a week straight. YouTube actually did the same thing. This was, I think, before, if you were to like timeline it and go back to 2008 or whatever. I think YouTube actually was first to this, but they were doing the very similar thing where when YouTube first came out, I think 10 minutes was the length. Then it went to, 30 minutes. Then it went to 24 hours, and now it's at whatever it's at. I think it's 24 hours plus like a file size limit. I've talked about that in a past episode, but that's like the trajectory, right? Like they're lengthening the time. Now YouTube did that in the past because they know that, and they experienced, when user retention is higher, when people are watching videos on a more frequent basis, and not only more frequently, but longer on a per session basis, they're just more likely to stick around on the platform, be more addicted to the content, and come back and revisit, and ultimately serve the biggest purpose, which is fill the pockets of YouTube through ads. So they're running ads on there. They get, the creators get a portion of the ad fee if someone watches the ad. YouTube gets a portion of it if they watch it, and then if they click on it, then they get higher payouts basically for all of that stuff. So they have figured out that if you leverage time, you get more money, basically. That's the game that these platforms are playing with each other. So TikTok is kind of got a little bit of a leg up, I hate to admit, but they have the addictiveness down through they're leveraging user retention and the average session duration through addictive content, not just through the ability for long form content. So as you can imagine, like a podcast, even like this, right? If I post a 15-minute video of this episode on YouTube and a 1-minute clip of it on TikTok, the 15-minute video on average is probably going to have more session duration than the 1 minute can. I mean, it has 15 times more ability for it to be watched because it's 15 times longer, right? So that's something YouTube has always had going for it, is someone will click on a 30-minute video and they'll actually watch the whole thing. Or they might watch 5 that day, and then they have 2.5 hours of session duration. Well, TikTok has had the virality portion down where they have, on average, people are watching 110 minutes a day, but they're going through like 100 videos, or like almost at 1,000, a couple hundred videos